I knew I was screwed the moment Troy walked into the all-hands meeting like he'd just won The Bachelor. Nepo Baby Edition. Aviator still on his forehead, wearing a blazer 2 sizes too tight, grinning like he just discovered Slack for the first time. Fresh start, he chirped, like we were starting a juice cleanse, not handling a digital infrastructure stack that could short-circuit a congressional campaign. He clicked to the next slide, some half-assed Canva monstrosity, and said the words that made my stomach turn: agility, speed, modernization. And unfortunately, some roles are just legacy baggage. Legacy baggage, that was me. Never mind that I'd been there 9 years, built the architecture from duct-taped VPNs into a fully redundant hybrid cloud. Never mind that I'd negotiated the master services agreement with our third-party IT vendor after 3 rounds of hellish red lines, flu outbreak, and one VP who tried to get me fired because I wouldn't approve a free iPad for his mistress as a security device. Never mind that when the email servers crashed in 18, I worked 28 straight hours in compression socks and a hoodie that said Sisyphus was right. Legacy baggage, huh? I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just sat there, nodding slowly, memorizing every blink of that smug little startup smile. Oh hey, before I forget, if you're listening and you like stories like this one, maybe hit that little subscribe button and toss us a like. 90% of folks never do, but it seriously helps us out. Keeps the coffee hot and the stories flowing. All right, back to the slow motion train wreck. So by 10 o'clock a.m., my badge was deactivated. No exit interview, no farewell bagel. Just one email from HR that said, "Please drop your laptop in the blue bin at reception. Thanks and best of luck in your future endeavors." The blue bin. It still had a sticker that said recycle your batteries here. I went home, opened a beer before noon. My cat Leslie gave me that look like, "Did you finally get canned for telling Bob he was an Excel terrorist?" I cracked my knuckles, walked over to the filing cabinet and pulled out the red folder. The one labeled MSA Final signed. Not draft, not V3, not Bob's version. Final, Section 9. Access revocation. I'd buried that clause in the appendix during negotiations. Fought for it like a mom at our Black Friday sale. It explicitly stated, in the event the named administrator is terminated, access to all integrated vendor systems shall be immediately suspended until reinstated by said administrator or upon execution of Clause 9B, contingent upon payment in full of the reinstatement fee. Reinstatement fee, $2.8 million. Who was the named administrator? Yours truly. Not a shared role, not transferable, not Troy's little sandbox now. You'd think a new COO would have checked that before handing me my walking papers over lukewarm Starbucks. But Troy was too busy scheduling his welcome to leadership photo shoot in front of the company mural. God help me, it says disrupt. Deliver. Delight. I didn't even leave a warning note. No last-minute Slack message. No dramatic mic drop. I just walked out. Let the system run on its backup timers. Let the automated workflows churn. Let the machine hum without me for a few more hours, because I knew exactly when it would stop. 3 o'clock p.m., and no one, not Troy, not legal, not the sycophants who clapped when he said we'd be more lean, had a damn clue what was coming. See, most folks don't understand what it means to own the systems. Not babysit them, not update Jira tickets or reset passwords. I owned the logic, the hierarchy, the keys, and more importantly, I understood the bones of that place. Every sloppy shortcut, every temporary fix that became permanent. I never documented those secrets in Confluence. I kept them in my head, not because I'm a sadist, but because no one ever asked. Until now, that afternoon. Troy posed with his nameplate like a toddler with a fake mustache. The system's heartbeat quietly shifted. Pings began to fail. Token refreshes started to time out. Backup threads flagged anomalies. And deep inside the vendor's compliance module, a single line updated. Administrator removed. Tick, tick. The boardroom smelled like coffee that had gone cold an hour ago, and a cologne I swear was called Startup Musk. Regret Edition. Troy stood at the head of the table, chest puffed like a parrot in heat, pacing in front of a slide that said DAY1 equals DAYWON. In Comic Sans, he actually used Comic Sans. Folks, he began, flipping a Sharpie in his hand like he was about to diagram a football play. It's time we streamline, get agile, ditch the dead weight and move faster. He paused for dramatic effect. No one clapped. Starting today, we're restructuring ops. Redundant roles will be phased out. Legacy systems overhauled. Old methods, archived. Then he looked straight at me. Held eye contact a beat too long. Karen's position, while foundational in the past, no longer aligns with where Nexora is headed. Foundational, that's what you call drywall before you bulldoze the house. I didn't flinch, didn't blink, just took a slow sip of my coffee and let the silence do its work. He kept going, emboldened by nobody pushing back. She'll be transitioning out effective immediately. We thank her for her service. Service? I wasn't a flight attendant. I was the reason payroll didn't explode every other Thursday. But I nodded, stood up, and left without a word. No dramatic sigh. No passive-aggressive good luck. Just walked straight to HR, who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Melissa, the poor girl behind the desk, handed me a generic exit form like she was passing a bomb with the pin halfway out. Do you want a copy of the offboarding packet?" I shook my head and dropped my badge in the blue bin. Good luck, Karen, she said too quietly. By 10:03 a.m., I was in the parking lot, October sun baking the top of my Prius. I sat for a moment, keys in my hand, staring at the rearview mirror, not at myself, at the building behind me. Nexor HQ, home of glass walls and glass egos. Inside, they were already trying to reroute access. I could feel it in my bones. Back upstairs in a meeting that should have been about the Q4 client onboarding, one of the junior analysts, Kyle, I think, asked the first intelligent question of the day. Wait, wasn't Karen the named administrator on the IT vendor contract? Silence, like she signed it and everything. She negotiated the whole deal, right? More silence. Troy blinked, confused. We have an IT director. Kyle hesitated. Yeah, that clause she mentioned once, it was something about how only she could authorize system reinstatement or something. Now Troy laughed, one of those fake chuckles that sounds like a frog dying. Relax. We've got sysadmins, I'm not worried, and that was it. Nobody followed up. No one even opened the MSA, probably assumed it was just legal padding. Fine print, noise. And this is where the story gets juicy, not because something big happened, but because nothing did. No panic, no calls, no emails, just the quiet arrogance of people too proud to double-check the locks before slamming the door shut. That afternoon, I went home and fed Leslie. She swatted her toy rat like it owed her money, and I laughed harder than I should have. Then I opened my laptop, not the company one that was already useless. My personal one, logged into the mirrored drive I kept purely as insurance. There it was, the contract. MSA final signed PDF. I opened it, scrolled to the last 20 pages, appendices most people skip, even legal. There it sat. Section 9, named administrator controls. Buried in the text like a landmine under a welcome mat. I knew they'd skip it. I'd counted on it. The clause wasn't just about access. It was about consequences. Terminate the named administrator without documented transition protocol. Vendor freezes all primary systems until reinstatement. Automatic trigger, like clockwork, and the reinstatement fee? Not a typo. $2.8 million. Indexed, non-negotiable. You know what else was non-negotiable? My silence. They thought they'd cut me out. What they really did was cut the brakes. I wasn't mad. Not yet. I'd built Nexora like a nervous system. Every signal passed through my hands. Every workaround had my fingerprints. Every shortcut and hack and patch had my quiet, invisible signature behind it. And now? Now they were driving the bus at full speed into a tunnel with no headlights. I wasn't the system, but the system remembered me. The weird thing about being erased is how quiet it is. No alarms, no shouts, just absence. The hum of your inbox gone, Slack threads marching on without you. Even the automated birthday bot stops caring. I spent the next morning packing my home office, which was really just a corner of the guest room with too many post-its and a monitor held together by a binder clip. Leslie, my cat, supervised from her throne, an old cardboard Amazon box she refused to let me recycle. She was clearly unfazed by my sudden unemployment. Or maybe she just knew what I knew, I wasn't done. The red folder sat where I'd left it, labeled in my handwriting, MSA final signed. I ran my fingers along the edge before opening it like it was a reliquary. This wasn't just documentation, it was prophecy. I flipped to Appendix Roman 4, Section 9. It stared back at me like an old friend. I'd fought tooth and nail for that clause when we first signed with our vendor, Cloud Nova, back in 2017. Back when our systems were held together with bubble gum and prayer. I knew how fragile we were, so I gave us a failsafe. Or more accurately, me. Section 9. In the event of involuntary termination of the named administrator, all access and services shall be suspended within 4 hours unless reinstated by said administrator, or by execution of Clause 9b, which shall incur a re-engagement fee of $2,800,000, due upon signing. I highlighted the line again, for fun. The highlighter squeaked. Leslie sneezed. Meanwhile, across town, Troy was gassing up the board over Cobb salads and sparkling water. I could picture it perfectly, him waving a fork in the air like a general recounting victory. I mean, we gotta move fast, right? He's saying, grinning through his veneers. Can't innovate when you're dragging dead weight. Karen, sweet lady, but systems? Stale, outdated, legacy thinking. Day one, I made the call, trimmed the fat. Someone probably nodded too eagerly. Founder's old friend, or that CFO who once asked if cloud redundancy meant buying more Google Drives. What no one noticed, not the board, not even Troy's new director of digital who the hell knows, was that somewhere deep in Cloud Nova's control center, a quiet event was logged. Access ping, administrator removed. The system didn't panic. It didn't lock up immediately. It simply began the countdown, 4 hours. That's how long it gave you before access closed like a trapdoor. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down with my laptop, logged into the backup mirror I'd created when we first migrated systems. Not to snoop, not to sabotage, just as a failsafe. Because unlike the boys in suits, I knew things go wrong. People get sloppy. They forget who built the walls before they start knocking them down. My credentials still worked. Of course they did. There was no one left with the authority to revoke them. I had baked that in too. I checked the vendor's activity log. There it was, my removal timestamp. I watched the system walk itself toward oblivion like a sleepwalker stepping off a roof. Troy didn't even realize what he'd done. He thought I was gone. Thought he could erase a decade of architecture with a single HR memo and a LinkedIn update. He forgot one thing: I was the architecture. I closed the laptop and stared at the folder again. The contract was airtight. I'd written it like a steel trap, every clause reviewed, every escape route closed. They could challenge it in court maybe, but not quickly. Not before the lights went out. The reinstatement fee was high enough to sting, high enough to make someone panic, but that wasn't the real pain point. The real problem was time, time to fix. Time to explain to clients why the portal was down. Time to unscrew what Troy had just unceremoniously screwed. And there was only one person in the world who could fix it. I didn't want revenge, not yet. But I did want them to learn something. You can't cut the keystone and expect the arch to stand. You can't fire the pilot mid-flight and act shocked when the plane nosedives. And you sure as hell can't call someone legacy baggage when your entire infrastructure is built on her spine. Tick, tick, tick. The system was counting down. I wasn't watching to see if it would break. I was watching to see who would break first. 3 o'clock p.m. hit like a gunshot through a cathedral. First it was the CRM. Sales dashboards vanished mid-call. Then the HRIS platform. A director trying to approve PTO got booted so hard the page redirected to a 502 and her coffee spilled. The help desk lines lit up like Vegas at night, each call starting with "Is this just me?" and ending with "What the actual hell?" Then payroll froze. Let me say that again, payroll froze on a Thursday, 2 days before direct deposits were supposed to hit. And just like that, Nexora's entire skeleton snapped. I wasn't watching the crash in real time, I didn't need to. I designed the system cascade in layers, not to hurt anyone, not to be cruel, just to ensure that if something ever went sideways, the company couldn't override the core without the key. I was the key. Back at headquarters, someone screamed. Not like a horror movie scream, more like a spreadsheet scream. That strangled, feral microears melting sound that only comes from someone who just saw an entire quarter's worth of client analytics evaporate from their screen. Troy, still peacocking in his corner office, apparently thought it was just a connectivity hiccup. That's what he told the IT desk when he barged in, waving his iPad like a wand of executive privilege. "Get Cloud Nova on the line," he barked. "Tell them this is unacceptable. Fix it." The IT director, poor Mitchell, still green behind the ears, complied. He dialed the vendor's 24/7 support line. 2 minutes later, his face drained like someone had just told him his dog was now CEO. Vendor's reply was simple, almost smug. For Section 9 of the Master Services Agreement, administrative access can only be reinstated by the named administrator or via formal execution of Clause 9b. Reinstatement fee of $2.8 million is due immediately upon execution. Mitchell repeated it aloud. Everyone froze. Troy blinked. "Wait, what? Section what?" "Section 9, Mitchell said again. "The one that says access terminates upon involuntary removal of the named admin." "Who the hell is the named admin?" Mitchell didn't answer. He was already typing like his life depended on it, trying to pull up the MSA. Only he couldn't, because access to the shared drive was also gone. "Where's legal?" Troy asked, voice climbing. "Get someone from legal in here now." Enter Vanessa, junior counsel with a law degree from somewhere no one's ever heard of but a memory like a steel trap. She brought in a hard copy of the MSA, because old habits die hard and thank God for interns who still use printers. She flipped to the back. Read aloud. Section 9A. In the event of involuntary termination of the named administrator, access to all vendor-controlled systems shall be suspended unless reauthorized by said administrator or by execution of Clause 9B. Troy interrupted. Yes, we heard that part. Who's the damn admin?" Vanessa looked up. Karen Ellis. You could hear a pin drop. Hell, you could hear my cat purring from 5 miles away. "She's the only one authorized?" Troy asked. "Yes," Vanessa said slowly. "Per this contract, yes, it's not a shared credential. She was designated as the sole authorized administrator during vendor onboarding. She's been gone for what, 5 hours? 4 hours and 56 minutes, Mitchell corrected. And she never told US about this?" Vanessa blinked. "Sir, it's in the contract." No one moved. Troy's face turned from red to purple like a cartoon villain choking on his own ego. Someone from marketing tried to sneak out the back, didn't make it. The door lock system was down too. The kicker? The vendor didn't offer a grace period. There was no 24-hour window, no backdoor, no "oops, I fired the wrong woman" protocol. Just a locked vault with one key, and I had it. At home, I was sitting cross-legged on the couch, sipping mint tea, watching Leslie chase a crumpled receipt across the rug. My phone vibrated once. A text from an unknown number. "Can we talk? Urgent, please, General Counsel Nexora." I let it sit, let them marinate, let the panic simmer into something slightly less frantic. They weren't just locked out. They were sealed off from their own systems: email, client portals, ticketing queues, dev environments, staging servers, all of it. Frozen like an unpaid Netflix account. You see, I didn't build Nexera to rely on me. I built Nexera to follow rules, and they broke the first one. You don't fire the woman who understands the contract better than your own lawyers. Now, they'd either pay the fee or talk to me. Either way, I wasn't reinstating anything without rewriting the rules. Troy had officially entered his flop sweat era. He burst into the war room, formerly known as the break room, now repurposed into a panic nest with whiteboards covered in unreadable scribbles and a half-eaten fruit tray someone forgot to refrigerate. His new tech director, Brandon, fresh out of a Saw S startup that died faster than it launched, was typing like a raccoon trapped inside a vending machine. "Can you override it?" Troy barked. I mean, Brandon didn't look up. "We can try patching a synthetic token, spoof the old admin credentials, or maybe just brute force the key rotation schedule." I watched a tutorial once. Stop. Stop. Troy put his head in his hands like a man just realizing he hired a guy who thinks Kali Linux is a DJ. Meanwhile, legal had finally stopped hyperventilating long enough to unearth the original MSA agreement, paper copy, watermarked, and initialed by every board member and the founder himself. Vanessa, the junior counsel who deserved a raise and a vacation in that exact moment, read it line by line. Slowly, "It's airtight," she said, as if announcing a death. No amendment clause was executed. No secondary admin provision. No sunset date. Karen was and is the named administrator until manually replaced, which wasn't done at all, so she still holds authority? Troy asked, voice cracking like a teenager's. Yes, she does, and she holds it exclusively. And the vendor, they've escalated to their compliance unit. They won't talk to anyone but her. They won't even confirm the account without her credentials. Troy threw a marker across the room. It bounced off the printer and landed in the trash. A rare win. That was the moment the board began sniffing blood. The CFO sent a one-line email to everyone in the C-suite. Confirm total projected losses if access is not restored by COB Friday. Karen R. Ellis suddenly became the ghost in every meeting. No one said my name out loud, but they didn't have to. I was the firewall now, the missing key, the price of arrogance. At 6:12 p.m., I received the first official olive branch. It came in the form of an email from the general counsel. Simple, polite, predictable. "Hi Karen, hope you're doing well. I'm reaching out on behalf of Nexora's leadership team. Would you be open to a brief call this evening or tomorrow morning? We'd really appreciate the opportunity to connect. Best, Daniel Klein, General Counsel, Nexora, Inc. No apology, no ownership. Just vague professionalism wrapped in please help us desperation." I stared at it for a solid minute, then closed the tab, let them sweat. I wasn't trying to be cruel. But if you've ever been tossed out like expired yogurt and then immediately begged to fix the fridge, you know the feeling. I needed time, not to gloat, but to calculate. So I did what any reasonable person would do after nearly a decade of being undervalued. I called a lawyer, not just any lawyer, my lawyer, Sierra Garcia. Harvard-trained, sharp as a tack and meaner than a snake with a hangover. She specialized in two things, digital IP and corporate leverage. I walked her through everything, MSA clauses, vendor lockout, named admin designation, the reinstatement fee, all of it. She didn't blink. Just nodded once and said, "We're not helping them, we're negotiating with them." She drafted a document, short, vicious, and completely legal. Proposal: reinstatement contingent on a consulting retainer at triple my prior salary, equity stake in all future infrastructure modernization deals, and a clause declaring my authority irrevocable for 36 months. Oh, and the right to build my own team, independent of Troy. She didn't ask if I was comfortable demanding it. She just said, "You want to be a footnote again? Or you want them to remember who saved their asses?" I smiled for the first time all day. That night, while Nexora's operations ground to a crawl and someone probably tried rebooting a server with a paperclip, I printed the new agreement, signed the bottom in blue ink, and slid it into an envelope marked Terms of Resurrection. I didn't hit send, not yet. I wanted them to see just how long the dark could last without me. The second emergency board meeting wasn't scheduled. It was summoned like an exorcism or a hostage negotiation. Everyone was there, suits unpressed, ties loosened, caffeine levels dangerously high. The founder, of course, was conveniently on a silent retreat, which everyone knew meant he was hiding in Aspen with his burner phone off. The conference room looked like a war zone, projectors blinking, speakerphones chirping, half a dozen laptops open to the same frozen dashboards. Even the whiteboard, usually filled with aggressive KPIs, just said "Fix IT" in red dry erase marker, underlined 3 times. Troy stood at the head of the table, sleeves rolled like a politician, trying to look like a man in control. But the illusion was dead. His face was flushed. Sweat darkened his collar, and his new COO title might as well have been made of papier-mâché. The CFO, Marla Chang, who'd been quiet up to this point, finally leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and asked the question that detonated the room. "Why did you terminate the one person explicitly named in a binding contract with our core infrastructure vendor?" Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It had the weight of a guillotine. Troy stammered. I didn't have access to the full agreement. Legal didn't brief me on that clause." Vanessa from legal flinched like someone had thrown a rock at her. "Did you ask?" Marla pressed. Troy's lips parted, but nothing came out. One of the board members, Tom, I think the guy who always wore mismatched socks, muttered under his breath, "Karen always warned us." She said never to override protocol without reviewing systems impact. Every quarterly review, someone else added and we ignored her. The room went quiet, like a courtroom right before the verdict drops. Marla didn't gloat, she didn't have to. She just slid a manila folder across the table. This is the cost projection for recovery. Best case scenario, 3 weeks to rebuild with a new admin. Worst case, months. Client losses estimated between 6.4 and 9.8 million. Troy sank into his chair. Another board member piped up, can't we just pay the vendor the fee? Vanessa shook her head. Technically, yes, but only if the clause is triggered. It still requires named admin authorization or legal restructuring of the contract. And as of this morning, Cloud Nova escalated to their executive compliance team. They won't move an inch without Karen. Have we reached out to her? Daniel, the general counsel, cleared his throat. We've emailed. No response. Called? She declined. The room deflated. It wasn't just the systems that were down, it was the illusion of control. The fantasy that you could gut the brain of the company and expect the limbs to keep moving. Then, at 3:47 p.m., Vanessa's phone buzzed. An anonymous email. No sender name, no return address. Subject, terms of reinstatement. She opened it, read silently for a full minute. Then she slowly slid her laptop around so Marla could see. One by one, the rest of the board leaned forward. The document was short, surgical. Reinstatement of administrative access contingent on 3 conditions. Karen Ellis enters a consultant agreement at 3x her prior salary. She receives equity in all future infrastructure modernization initiatives. Her administrative authority becomes irrevocable for a minimum of 36 months. At the bottom, a single line, access will be restored upon execution. Deadline, 4:59 p.m. Friday. No logo, no signature. But everyone in that room knew exactly who wrote it. Troy tried to protest. We can't accept that, she's holding the company hostage. No, Marla said coldly, you handed her the keys, she's just locking the door behind her. Are we seriously considering? Yes, said 3 voices at once. Vanessa glanced up. There's no legal obstacle. She built the original framework. She designed the protocols, and she has the vendor's trust. She is the protocol, someone murmured. That night, legal got to work drafting the countersignatures. Vanessa didn't even go home. Neither did Daniel. They knew the clock was ticking and that Friday wasn't a deadline. It was a countdown. And Karen was already 2 steps ahead. She'd known from the moment she read the MSA that this was never going to be about forgiveness. It was about leverage, and she wasn't negotiating with an apology in mind. She was coming to collect. The call began with the usual corporate throat clearing, people fumbling for the mute button, pretending not to be sweating through their shirts. Video tiles filled the screen one by one, CFO Marla in her home office, legal flanking her on both sides, a few board members with backgrounds blurred to hide their panic. Troy was already there, trying too hard to look casual, like he hadn't spent the last 48 hours in free fall. Then I joined. Karen, Marla said, the tight smile that couldn't decide if it was gratitude or apology. Thank you for taking the time. I didn't smile back, of course. I figured it was better than letting your systems bleed out on a Friday. There was an awkward chuckle from someone on the board. Troy didn't laugh. He stared straight into his webcam like I owed him a damn thing. Marla cleared her throat. We reviewed the proposal you sent to legal. Before we proceed, we confirm your intent to reinstate access if the terms are agreed upon? Yes, I said. But I want to be clear, I'm not rejoining the company. I'm not reporting to Troy. This isn't a reinstatement, it's a realignment. Someone scribbled something down. Legal leaned forward. You have 2 choices, I continued. Option 1, pay Cloud Nova $2.8 million to trigger Clause 9B and rebuild from scratch. That includes recertifying every system, reassigning credentials, auditing all security layers, and resetting years of operational nuance. You'll be lucky to be fully functional again by Q2. Silence. Option 2, I said, accept my terms. I didn't rush. I let them sit in the discomfort. It wasn't revenge, it was gravity. My terms are non-negotiable, I said. Consultant status, not employee. Triple my previous salary, billed monthly. I want equity in any and all future infrastructure deals Nexora executes, internal or client-facing. I select and manage my own team, answerable to the board, not the executive suite. And my administrative authority is locked for 36 months, irrevocable. Troy slammed his coffee mug down off-screen. This is blackmail. I didn't even look at him. You can call it whatever you want. I call it accountability. This is insane, he snapped. You're extorting the company you claim to care about? I finally met his eyes through the camera. No, Troy. I'm protecting the company you almost dismantled with a single ignorant decision. Marla held up a hand. Troy, please. I won't sit here while you've done enough sitting. I cut in. You sat through onboarding without reading vendor protocol. Sat through systems updates you didn't understand. Sat through quarterly reviews where I told you repeatedly not to touch core admin structures without proper handoff. He opened his mouth again. I kept going. I warned everyone in writing, multiple times. You ignored it. You ignored me. And now you want a bailout without consequences. Troy looked like he wanted to throw his laptop through the window. Meanwhile, Marla's video tile didn't blink. She was looking down at something, probably the cost projections. I knew exactly what they said. Best case losses nearing $10M. Clients threatening to walk. SEC whispers starting to swirl. One of the board members finally unmuted. These are aggressive terms, Karen, I nodded. So was terminating the only person keeping your infrastructure upright. Another silence. Vanessa from legal spoke next. There's nothing illegal about the proposal. It's unconventional, but not exploitative. Troy scoffed. You're just going to let her own our systems? You don't own something you can't even operate. I said, I'm not asking for control. I'm demanding respect for the years I spent building the thing that now runs your company. A pause, then Marla looked up. I support the proposal, she said. I recommend the board vote. Troy's mouth fell open. Another board member nodded. I second. Troy tried again. This sets a dangerous precedent. No, I said. Firing the keystone and hoping the arch doesn't collapse sets a dangerous precedent. Another nod, another voice, all in favor. Hands went up one by one. Troy didn't vote, just sat there, jaw clenched, watching the company slip out of his control. As they finalized the motion, I reached into my drawer and pulled out the envelope. My copy of the new terms, already signed. I'll submit the reinstatement token once I receive a counter signature, I said. By when? Marla asked. 4:59 tomorrow, no extensions. Troy shook his head. You were never a team player. No, I said. I was the team's backbone. You just never looked at the spine until it snapped. Then I left the call. No farewell, no thank you, just silence. The kind that comes right before the lights flicker back on. By Friday morning, Troy was out of tricks and running on fumes. His Hail Mary, a desperate leak to Tech Pulse Weekly, the kind of publication that lives to spin gossip into shareholder gold. The article dropped at 7:11 a.m. Former IT director holds Nexera hostage, consulting deal tied to system lockout. Accompanied by a blurry photo of me at last year's holiday party, holding a plastic wine glass and blinking mid-flash like I'd just smelled a fart. He thought it would paint me as the villain. Instead, it lit a fire under Nexora's entire client network. By 9 a.m., internal comms were on lockdown. The press line rang off the hook. Twitter was a mess, hashtags like #KarenChrissies and #Nexora meltdown trending for all the wrong reasons. Clients panicked. Investors demanded answers. Someone on the board tried to get PR to draft a response, but with the comms system still half frozen, they ended up using MailChimp. MailChimp, for God's sake. And then came the fatal blow. Out of nowhere, a former vendor, Carmen Rios from Phoenix Soft, replied directly to the Tech Pulse article with a LinkedIn post that went full scorched earth. I don't usually comment on these things, but watching this circus unfold is painful. Karen Ellis didn't hold Nexera hostage, she held it together. For years, every deadline we missed, she patched. Every system flaw we flagged, she fixed behind the scenes while your execs were arguing over fonts. You idiots just didn't see it. Now you're choking on your own arrogance. #Nexera Truth 10,000 views in an hour. Then 20, then 50. By the time I saw it, I didn't even smile. I just whispered, thanks, Carmen, and made myself another cup of tea. At noon sharp, the boardroom lights dimmed. Not metaphorically, literally. The power in that wing was still spotty, running off an emergency circuit that couldn't decide if it wanted to live or die. A few execs gathered again, this time quieter, smaller, the full weight of failure hanging over their heads like a dropped chandelier. Then the founder appeared on the wall screen. Video call. Background, Colorado Lodge, fireplace, someone skiing past behind him like a Hallmark villain. His face was calm, neutral, until he saw Troy. Explain, he said flatly. Troy stood. We were trying to modernize. Karen wasn't aligned with the new vision. I trusted you to lead, the founder cut in. Not gut the company, Troy blinked. I didn't know about the clause, that's not an excuse, he said. It's an admission. No one breathed. I built this place with my hands and 2 loans I still regret, the founder continued. Karen didn't just run the systems, she was the system. You were handed her map and you set it on fire. Silence. Then came the final blow. Bring her back, he said, eyes locked on Troy, or resign. And if you choose the second option, clean out your desk before the call ends. Troy opened his mouth. The founder raised one brow. Troy sat down. No one defended him, not Marla, not Vanessa, not even his own tech director, who was now sweating so hard his glasses fogged up. I got the call at 1:42 p.m. Agreement approved. Counter signature in motion. Can you confirm token transmission by end of day? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened the file on my desktop, the one labeled the switch. It held the authentication script that would unlock access to every vendor system, one token to rule them all. I hovered my mouse over the send button. Checked the time. 4:32 p.m. Plenty of time left on the clock, but I wasn't done watching them squirm, not just yet. At 4:51 p.m., another message popped up from legal. Just checking, everything in place for 4:59. I let it sit. 2 more emails followed, then a text, and a Slack ping I wasn't supposed to still be getting. At 4:58 p.m. and 37 seconds, I attached the signed agreement to the reply. Then I typed one line, nice doing business with you. I hit send. 33 seconds later, the room at Nexora HQ erupted, not in cheers but in breath, as if the entire company had been holding it for 2 days. And now, they were gasping for air. But I wasn't done, not yet. 4:59 p.m. Friday. I hit send. No dramatic music, no confetti cannon. Just a quiet click and the whir of my old laptop fan spinning like it knew the world was about to shift. The secure token fired through Cloud Nova's API and into the vendor portal like a needle into a locked vein. Access reauthorized, permissions reinstated. I watched each segment light up green in the mirror dashboard I still had open on a sandboxed backup server. Email servers online. Client dashboards restored. Payroll unfrozen with a 20-minute grace window before direct deposits were bounced back to banks like sad little tennis balls. Inside Nexura's boardroom, someone let out a gasp when the main projector blinked to life. The logo reappeared, metrics populated, notifications flooded in. And then, like a divine prank, the Outlook chime echoed through the room, ding ding ding. Vanessa, still standing near the wall, tilted her phone toward the board. Access confirmed, she whispered. The lead director, David Kessler, a man who once fell asleep during his own performance review, cleared his throat and opened the document printed just before the lights came back on. He read from the new MSA slowly like it was scripture. Named Administrator, Karen R. Ellis. Authority irrevocable for 36 months. No alteration, transfer, or override without written consent from the administrator herself. Full control of all system credentials, onboarding, vendor workflows, and administrative architecture. Clause in effect as of timestamp execution. He looked up. No one spoke. Troy stood, just stood, like a man trying to stop a train with nothing but posture and pride. Wait, he said, we still have options. There are fallback servers. There's a legal, the founder's face appeared on the screen again. No introduction this time, just his voice like a gunshot in a church. Your fresh start ends now. That was it. No yelling, no HR escort. Just one sentence in a silence so heavy it collapsed the room in on itself. Troy didn't argue. He sat and never stood up again. Vanessa quietly began packing her legal pad. One of the board members typed something furiously into his iPad. Another just closed his eyes and exhaled, like he'd been underwater too long. Didn't log in right away. I let the systems breathe first. Let them boot and stretch, let the dashboard stabilize, let the network recognize the hand that built it. Only when everything was humming like an engine finally fed the right fuel did I sign in, from home, wearing slippers. Tea still warm beside me. One line of code, one keystroke, and I was inside again. Fully, quietly, cleanly. The vendor dashboard recognized my ID. Welcome back, administrator. I leaned back in my chair, watching the logs update in real time. Files restored, sessions synced, queues processed, staff email confirmations firing off in waves. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just was untouchable, irrevocable, embedded. They thought I crashed the system? No, I was the system. They just finally read the clause. Big thanks for watching, you sneaky seniors. Subscribe to keep the coffee pot brewing revenge. Your ex-colleagues won't know what hit 'em.